The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning and welcome to the South Shore Clean Cities Propane School Bus Success Stories webinar. My name is Catherine Yoder, Marketing and Project Coordinator for South Shore Clean Cities, filling in today for Ryan Lissick, our Project Manager. I'd like to thank everybody for attending today and extend a special thanks to our speakers for allowing us to share their success stories. As a reminder, all attendees are on listen-only mode, and today's webinar will be recorded and shared on the South Shore Clean Cities resources page on our website. If you have any questions throughout the presentation, please type them in the questions box on the panel to the right. If you have questions for a specific speaker, please address it accordingly. We will be monitoring the questions throughout and address them at the appropriate times. I'd like to give a brief background on the success story we're featuring in this webinar today. South Shore Clean Cities applied on behalf of Franklin Community Schools in round one of the Indiana Volkswagen Environmental Mitigation Trust Fund program for the replacement of 8 diesel buses and low NOx certified propane buses. The grant funds covered 25% of the total cost of the propane buses. Since receiving the award, Franklin Community Schools has worked with AmeriGas Propane as the autogas fuel provider for their buses. MacAllister Transportation sold the Blue Bus school buses to Franklin Community Schools, which were upfitted with the Roush CleanTech propane system. We are so grateful to have assisted with this grant opportunity and work with member partners to see this project come to fruition. You will hear from the partners involved in this project today. Speakers today include Chris Ransom, National Autogas Manager with AmeriGas Propane, Tyler Nohe, Transportation Account Manager with MacAllister Transportation, Doug Dickinson, Transportation Director with Franklin Community Schools, and then myself, Catherine Yoder, Marketing and Project Coordinator for South Shore Clean Cities. Thank you all again for participating in this webinar. We really appreciate your time. Chris, if you'd like to go ahead and start us off with a few facts about propane. Let me transfer the mouse to you, and we can go ahead. And if you'd like to unmute yourself.
That'd be a good idea. Yeah. Good. Hi, everybody. Thanks so much. I'm Chris Ransom with AmeriGas. Like Catherine said, thanks so much, Catherine, for the introduction. We're going to talk about implementing propane in your school or in your fleet, primarily school buses. But let's talk about autogas, which we'll describe that in a second. But the messy middle right now. I stole this from the Director of Sustainability for UPS. He said, we're in the messy middle. Fleet directors are being inundated with direction and information about just about every alternative fuel that's out there right now. Excuse me, whether it's CNG, electric, whatever it is. This is the messy middle, and there are a number of things that are at play right now and a number of things that you have to decide on. So let's get going here. Let's see here. There we go. So what is autogas? It's propane. But in Europe or in Australia or other parts of the world, propane is referred to as autogas. And you can pull into any petrol station, just like the one seen here, which was taken in Germany, and autogas is available. Our autogas here in America, our propane here in America is all American made. I'll show you that here in a second. These are all the benefits of propane that you and your fleet are going to enjoy. So it's all made here in America. It's readily available, which means you're not going to, run out of supply anytime soon. Best total cost of ownership of any alt fuel out there right now. We are environmentally friendly, which of course makes us an alt fuel. And currently we're running over 500,000 vehicles, and it's growing. We have school buses in every state except Mississippi that are running on propane right now. So it's really taken off in the last couple of years, and we're going to show you why. So what happened? We've been running propane forever and ever and ever in America in our forklift trucks and in our homes for heating and in a variety of other ways. Propane's terribly versatile. But what happened was the announcement late 2018 that America became a net exporter of energy. We declared our energy independence. And it was through a ton of exploration. And Americans being Americans, we developed ways of getting fuel and energy out of the ground better than anybody else in the world. But we're second only to Saudi Arabia in terms of efficiency of getting oil out of the ground. That's how far we've come in about 10 years. We were in, not even the top 10 in terms of production costs, and now we're number 2 in the world. So our shale plays have really changed what we're doing. All of the propane here in America is grown here in America under our feet. And right now we have about 150 years at current rates of propane available here in America. We export a whole lot, and we could be using a lot more of it in-house, so to speak. So when it comes to propane, like I said, there's never a supply shortage. There tends to be, if there's any kind of bunch up, it'll be weather related, or there'll be a supply issue, or not a supply issue, a transportation issue. And this is where in the chain of 3, when it comes to alt fuel, finding a perfect technology, right? Finding a way to get it into your vehicles efficiently, and then finding a supplier that doesn't miss a beat, right? And this is where AmeriGas comes in on 2 of those 3 of those options. Nohe, MacAllister is going to cover the technology with the bus, and I'm here to cover the other part, the supply and the distribution, or the way of getting the fuel into your vehicle. So this is the obligatory AmeriGas plug of the presentation. So this is where we kind of separate ourselves with our unmatched supply chain. We have the second largest tanker fleet in America, and a number of tractor trailers, and we don't operate regionally, we operate nationally. So if weather phenomena is hitting the orange fields in California, we'll send assets from North Carolina to help support that. If there's hurricanes hitting Florida and Texas, we'll send assets from the Northwest or the Northeast down in that area to help take care of business. We enjoy a flexibility and a way of getting to you that other folks just don't, because of our national footprint and our ginormous fleet of trucks. So this is a real tough eye chart here to look at on your screen, but when you get a chance to take a look at this, go through it. And there are plenty of these calculators online. I know Roush has one, Bluebird has one. We have one on our system. PERC, the Propane Education Research Council, has a calculator, but this calculator will help you determine your total cost of ownership. And when you dive down here, you can see, we do really well against the other options that are out there for you in the busing world. Again, environmentally friendly. Imagine, we're seeing some of the effects of reduced emissions right now. Some of our more polluted cities because of COVID are actually, you can see it with your own eyes, the effects of less transportation. So imagine a world where we're 60 to 90% better than what we're doing out of the tailpipe right now. And that's the world a propane can give you. We're not toxic. We're not going to ruin the surface water. 75% less NOx emissions, and that's growing all the time. Very low carbon intensity, and I want you to pay attention to that because carbon intensity is what it's all about. We're one of the few fuels that come out of the ground and go into your vehicle ready to go without any post-production whatsoever. So very good on your environmental benefits there. Let's see what else we got here. So that's the supply, getting it out of the ground, getting it to you for you to use in your fleet. Next, you need a dispenser, right? Something we're going to deliver to and something you can use every day. So auto gas equipment is terribly versatile. We can, if you wanted to start out with a couple buses and work your way into 30 or 40 buses, we can do that. It doesn't take much. Usually, the equipment is all provided as part of the contract with your fuel provider. So, but choose wisely in that case, because again, supply, the way you get your fuel, the dispenser that's on your location, that has to be bulletproof. And of course, the technology you're using, the 3 steps. So you can see we have a list of items here that are of benefit to you. But let's just give you some examples here. like I said, completely scalable. Whether you start with a small skid package here and you work your way into a larger transport, you can start your alt fuel program with just a couple buses, and that'll, you know, get your foot in the door, get you using the propane, and get you understanding the benefits, the full-on benefits of propane. This was a decision-making matrix that one of our customers put together, and I've been using it for years. I think it's really powerful, and you can go through this. Propane checks all the boxes. Like I said, this is the messy middle. There are a number of options out there right now, but if you look at top to bottom, start to finish, propane and autogas check all of the boxes. We come right out of the ground, ready to go. So with that, that was a very quick dive into propane in the propane world. But yeah, I'll hand it off to Catherine and Noah, and you guys can go from there. Thank you so much for your time, everybody.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate that. Next, we will go ahead and have Tyler speak. 1 second. All right, Tyler, whenever you're ready.
All right, so my name is Tyler Nohe. First, I want to thank Catherine and South Shore Clean Cities for inviting us to speak on this. We're happy to be here. We're happy to always talk about alternative fuels and propane in general. So I'm going to piggyback off of a little bit of what Chris said as far as, you know, propane benefits. It's always good to hear that stuff more than once. I'll talk a little bit about the technology of the bus and what goes on the bus, more specifically what comes off the diesel bus. And then just kind of started off here by telling you a little bit about MacAllister. We were founded in 1945, so this year is actually our 75th anniversary. We are Indiana's Caterpillar dealer. And the transportation division kind of got started in 2009. They were looking for a way to kind of get in on-highway trucking, which kind of led us to school bus. So they formed a partnership with Bluebird and became the Indiana Bluebird dealer. And then that led to our partnership with Ford and Roush. And so I'll get a little bit into detail about that and some of our success stories here. So let's see. All right, so Chris kind of outlined this a little bit. Bluebird offers, they've always been at the forefront of alternative fuels. So we offer a wide variety of fuels. And as you can see here, we offer diesel, gas, propane, CNG, and electric. And when you're talking about ease of adoption, NOx emissions, fuel infrastructure, total cost of ownership, cold weather operation, this chart here shows that really the best option for school districts in our mind is the one that checks all the boxes, and that's propane. So a little bit about Bluebird's propane history. As Chris mentioned, it's domesticated, so 97% of it is produced in North America. Bluebird launched their alternative fuels division in 1992. They were Gen 1 propane. It was the vapor systems, and a lot of schools may remember those, 25, 30 years ago. They weren't the most sophisticated systems, and so they didn't do very well in some areas. So in 2007, they introduced Gen 2. They partnered with PTI and Clean Fuel. They used a GM 8.1 liter, and it was the first liquid injection system. They then started evolving, and that led to the partnership in 2011 with Ford and Roush Clean Tech. They introduced the Ford 6.8 liter V10 in school buses with the 6R140 transmission from Ford. And then again, as the years move on, they want to continue to evolve. So in 2016, they launched the Gen 4, which is their current system. And they have an exclusive partnership until 2025 with Ford and Roush Clean Tech. And they're always trying to listen to their customers on performance and how to get emissions lower and maintenance and accessibility and everything. So propane benefits, as we mentioned, the energy independence being available in America. The financial aspect of it, we'll get to touch on the total cost of ownership and kind of all the components that you're going to be able to save money on and maintenance, and then the environmentally friendly aspect of it. We have a lot of children in this world, and they're breathing in these fumes that some of these buses are spitting out every day. And it's always nice to be able to provide a school district and their students with just a cleaner fuel. So kind of the definitions that we're kind of looking at, and the big one is NOx, and that's the middle column there. And that's the nitrogen oxide that's outputted by these buses. The energy standard for the emissions is 0.2. Bluebird has the lowest LPG propane in the industry at 0.05. Ford and Roush have worked together, and we can even do an ultra low NOx emissions at 0.02. And as you can see, compared to a diesel engine that's 0.19, we'll talk a little bit about the complexity that the diesel engine goes through just to be able to meet 1/100th of a lower standard than the 0.2. So the first question people ask is why propane? Schools ask why propane? Well, there's 4 main areas that we like to focus on. The first is cost savings, and that's going to be huge for transportation directors to be able to present to their CFOs. Districts have reported up to 37 cents per mile savings as a total cost of ownership, whether that be maintenance, fuel, all that kind of put together. A big thing for the kids and for the drivers on the bus is noise reduction. And it can be up to 40% quieter with a quiet propane engine there in the front of the bus. And a lot of our drivers have said, they're able to hear the students better. The students aren't yelling over that loud diesel engine and trying to talk loud. It's more of just a conversational voice. A lot of our special needs buses, a lot of those kids have auditory needs. And a lot of those quieter engines really help them out. Cold start here in Indiana, northern Indiana, and as you get more north, these buses were designed to work better in the cold weather. They can start up to as low as 40 degrees Fahrenheit, and then low emissions, as we talked about. Just the ultra low NOx that we can offer. So ease of converting fleet, that's the next thing that some of the schools want to know about. Bluebird, obviously, since 1992, been the alternative fuel experts. We have over 22,000 alternative fuel school buses, whether that be propane, gasoline, CNG, and now electric. And we're servicing over 900 school districts in the country. With those, when you narrow that down to just propane, out of the 22,000, you're talking about over 18,300 propane school buses on the road. Carrying over approximately 1.1 students per day. And then, we're working with 930 school districts, private schools, bus contractors. And that's, based off of all, 2019 Polk data. So we're only continuing to grow there. And then if you look at that map there, you kind of see that Indiana is a little lighter shaded, and the map kind of needs to be updated. The green dots are obviously, like I said, it's a little outdated. We have to get a couple months on there for some schools as the VW money is rolling, we're only getting more customers. So do we work here? Oh, hold on. Sorry, skipped ahead a little bit. Oh, how do I go back, Catherine? Sorry.
What slide were you on?
Go ahead all the way to the end. Yeah, go back. It should be Y convert. Yeah, right there. There we go. Thank you.
Welcome.
All right. Let's see if we can get this to work now. There we go. Okay, so preventative maintenance is one of the things that schools and mechanics are going to want to know, kind of what they're dealing with these engines. With any gas and propane Ford V10 engine, you're talking about 7 quarts of oil. With various diesel engines, we've seen anywhere from 17, 18, 30 quarts of oil required to do an oil change on some of these diesel buses. Right here are just some of the components that are on diesel buses. As I mentioned earlier, you're talking about adding all these components on here just to reach that 0.19 in the NOx category and the NOx reduction to meet emission standards. You're talking about an EGR cooler, an EGR valve, an SCR catalyst, NOx sensors, the DEF assembly, the DEF tank, even a block heater. So all of that stuff basically is wiped away when you adopt a propane or a gas engine. And so kind of the components that go on these engines here for preventive maintenance, these are just kind of rough figures here, but you're talking about an air cleaner and oil filters, and there's your 7 quarts of oil. You're talking, just south of $71 for an oil change. On a typical, Cummins ISB engine, you got your oil filter and you got your fuel filter and your Allison control filter, your 18 quarts of oil, just fuel spin-on filter, all that, and you're looking at $277. So you're saving a good $200 for every time you do an oil change on that bus. The cost of the engine components, as we mentioned, there's not a lot that goes on to that engine. You have your spark plugs, you have your injectors, your converter assembly, which is the big ticket item. Injectors are actually the big ticket item. Gaskets, PCV hoses, O2 sensors, and you're talking about $3,300. You take a look at the diesel engine, you have your NOx sensors that I mentioned, your pressure sensors, your temperature sensors, the turbo, which everyone is always worried about. When's the turbo going to go out? EGR cooler, EGR valve, you're talking about just north of $21,000. So a lot cheaper for the components there. And then as you're talking about, the total cost of ownership that Chris mentioned earlier, these are kind of rough numbers we took as far as, and this is just fuel and preventative maintenance only. So this is if everything works perfectly, no turbo ever goes out, you never have to change an EGR cooler, anything like that. You do have a little bit of an acquisition cost upgrade for the propane bus. You see you're getting a cheaper fuel there. And then just with fuel and preventative maintenance, you're looking at 25 cents per mile on the propane bus compared to 39 cents for the diesel. So that's all I have today. So if you guys have any questions for me, feel free to call or email, and I'm always available.
Awesome. Thank you so much. All right. Let me go ahead and transfer over to Doug. Doug will now talk about Franklin Community Schools and kind of their transition to propane and some cost savings and things like that. Doug, whenever you are ready.
All right. Thanks, Catherine. My name is Doug Dickinson. I'm the Transportation Director with Franklin Community Schools. We're located about 20 miles south of Indianapolis. Our district is about 112 square miles. We're roughly like a rectangle. We're 16 miles wide and 8 miles north and south. Of that, about 65 or 70% of our students live within a 3-mile radius of our town, which is where the majority of our schools are at. We have 7 buildings, and then we have an elementary that is probably about 20 minutes outside of town. We transport about 3,500 students. That varies year to year, but we stay right around that amount. We have 70 buses and 60 routes. Our budget, which is something that was huge in deciding how to go and if propane would be something that we go down that road and look and see if it saves us budget dollars. Our budget's $2.7 million here in the transportation department, and that includes wages and benefits. Back whenever tax caps were first put in and stuff, our CFO at the time said that we were ranked about in the top 13 of corporations that lost funding. So we've been upside down in our department for quite some time now. So looking for ways, sustainable ways to live within our budget. Last year, we put our first 3 propane buses online. See if I can get this to. Again, the reason why we started looking at propane buses is because of our fuel budget, our CFO needing to balance the transportation budget throughout the year. So if it made sense budgetarily, then we could head down another road to see what it would do for, we have probably 4 buildings that the way that they're laid out and where our bus drop off is, if we leave buses idling, then it's less than 5 minutes before the staff inside starts calling to get us to turn off the buses. The air handler and the buses sitting on the west side of the building causes those fumes to draw inside, and it's no time before those staff members are calling down to the office and stuff. So that is an additional perk that we were looking for. I started looking at propane buses about 4 years ago. Started asking questions to other local corporations that were going propane. Kind of sitting back and listening to the issues that they had at the time, whether it be infrastructure or various things, what their drivers thought of them. And again, as a director, my suggestion is ask as many questions as you can to as many people as you can, because if something makes sense to you, it's easier to sell to your school board and to your CFO as well as your superintendent. So get all the information you can from people around you. Bus vendors, again, Tyler was huge in helping us out, but whoever your bus vendor is, get several different perspectives. Things to consider, the size of your fleet, average miles you put on your buses. Here, one good thing about diesels is always, the additional miles you can put on them. Here, our corporation, whenever we trade in a bus, after 15 or 18 years is usually what we've been going lately. Usually the body is what gives way on ours. We don't get any more than 150,000 miles on our buses. So the engine, we're not looking for that 300-mile range out of our engines. Other things to look for is, does your city have a clean air initiative? Maybe there's some funds that you go there, or getting your city on board that would help your possibly your infrastructure cost, or just increase potential advantages to go in propane. Cost analysis. This is huge, and there's a lot of them out there. Do your own cost analysis. Use different the different sheets that are out there. Get one, use it. Put in your own dollar amounts. Again, as you're talking to vendors, propane vendors such as AmeriGas, get your own numbers so you know what those real costs are, and be sure to include everything. And be realistic about the numbers. Don't aim for a pie in the sky number that, only if the stars align are you going to reach that goal. So be realistic about your goals, so that as you start transitioning to propane, then you're going to meet the numbers that you yourself has advertised to your school board and stuff. In mine, whenever I done it, we did receive VW dollars. from the first round, but I didn't use that into any of the figures that I used. At the time, they hadn't been awarded whenever I made the presentation to our school board, but also we need to do something here that's sustainable. We don't want to, or I didn't want to go down to the road to where, you know, if you get a certain means of fuel and then you're unable to continue on with that, you know, after grant dollars run out, then that wasn't something that was going to help us out. We needed something that regardless, we needed to be able to continue on our own. That made sense there. Since we put our first 3 online, I've been tracking every time they fuel. I get their the number of miles that they ran and the number of gallons that they put in. So I've been tracking the mileage, what we're really getting. And what I'm finding is that mileage fluctuates quite a bit. And your vendors will tell you that. But it's a little bit more of a conscious effort on your part in order to make sure that those buses are going out on a daily basis. You know, if you're running trips, send the propane buses first. And it only makes sense. I mean, if you have new buses, they're under warranty. So why would you send a used diesel bus that you've had for a while out and risk it breaking down and there's no warranty? And so that comes directly out of your budget. But your mileage fluctuates due to your route makeup, your trips, and the driver habit. And actually, the spreadsheet that I made out with the mileage, I actually share that with those 3 drivers so that they can see firsthand. You know, with a diesel bus, a lot of them, you know, drivers get used to putting them to the floor to get it spooled up to start rolling. With propane buses, they're basically a gas engine and have almost the same acceleration. So, you know, it's a big learning curve for them to keep their foot out of it. So, you know, those are things that come into play. And again, utilize your propane everywhere that you can, so that you see the savings and be able to live up to the cost analysis that you've done. For us, it was easy to show how propane would save us dollars. And again, we're looking for ways here. You know, a little bit of money goes a long way in my department. So it was easy for me to show, and with talking with the vendors, it was easy to get behind the numbers that I was putting down. And being that I talked to so many people, I knew that those numbers were real. The only thing that I had to do after the fact then was just to verify that the mileage was there. So it was easy to see, easy to prove now that direction was our best route. The figures that I put in the spreadsheet are very close to what they are real time. We'll have 5 more propane buses that'll be delivered in late September. Utilizing those 8 propane buses versus our diesel buses, we're going to save at least 2 loads of diesel a year, $25,000 to $30,000. And for my budget, that's pretty huge. Whenever I can shave that off of there, you know, I calculated about $3,500 per bus. Is what we would save, and that didn't count into, you know, not needing a block heater and saving those costs, as well as warm up time is less. So it's, you know, it's going to pan out for us, and the numbers really worked out for us. In our situation, I've talked with our mechanics, and I don't know of a reason right now, unless technology changes, that we would go back to a diesel powered bus. It just doesn't make financial sense for us. And whenever you look at the cost, the original cost and the upkeep of those buses. So as Tyler was saying, whenever things break down, as your mechanics know, that there's so many devices put on those buses to meet EPA requirements that the maintenance costs of our diesel buses are off the charts compared to the propane buses that we have. And of course they're new, so nothing's breaking yet, but the mechanics are familiar with the gasoline part of the engine, so I can't see to where repair costs would be that extensive on those. This, I just included a picture of our fueling station. Again, we'll have a total of 8 online at the end of September. This was easy, as far as the infrastructure that we have here, our lot, all of our buses come back to the lot. It's like I said, we have 70 buses parked here. This was easy to put in. The lot was fenced in. As the buses come in to the lot, this fueling station is immediately on the right-hand side. So it works out good. The drivers don't have any issues at all as far as fueling. So everything has worked out real well for us. So I believe that's all I have. So any questions, just let Catherine know and I'll do what I can to answer them.
Thank you, Doug. I appreciate it. I did have a question. When did you install the fueling station at the facility?
It was installed early this calendar year. We were one huge issue that we had is our electrician that ran the power. Our building was set up with room to grow. In fact, the parking lot you see it's a grass lot, but right behind that fueling station is set up for additional parking, which I'm sure we will get to sooner than later. We have a lot of housing additions going in around us. But anyway, the probably our biggest hurdle was scheduling with him. He does a lot of work out of state and out of the country, but he is the contractor who wired our building back in '98 originally. So it's not been in place very long in the scope of things, but again, we started getting things in place back at the beginning of the calendar year.
Awesome. Well, that's good to hear. And I wanted to thank you guys again for allowing South Shore to kind of assist you with these accomplishments. And we look forward to more successes coming soon. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to give a little background about South Shore Clean Cities, and then we can go into the question portion. If anybody does have questions, please add them to the questions section on the right-hand panel, and we'll address it in a little bit. So South Shore Clean Cities, we are headquartered in St. John, Indiana. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization designated as the 71st Clean Cities Coalition on June 15th, 1999. South Shore Clean Cities is one of the U.S. Department of Energy's nearly 100 Clean Cities coalitions across the country. In the last decade alone, South Shore Clean Cities members have reduced greenhouse gas emissions by 607,000 tons and displaced over 93 million GGEs. South Shore Clean Cities manages the Green Fleet program throughout northern Indiana, serving members and stakeholders in the public, private, and nonprofit sectors by working with their fleet vehicles to reduce emissions and improve cost savings. South Shore Clean Cities works with and guides these fleets to help mitigate barriers preventing the adoption of alternative fuels and advanced technology vehicles while creating policies supporting petroleum and vehicle emission reductions. South Shore Clean Cities currently guides more than 150 member fleets on ways to save on costs associated with operations and maintenance. Some benefits of becoming a South Shore Clean Cities Green Fleet member include educational opportunities such as fuel and technology workshops, trainings, and seminars, recognition and certification for fleet leads taking steps to improve environmental performance and efficiency, branding and promotional tools to help fleets leverage earned certification status, informational resources including current technology options, market conditions, laws and incentives, connections with vendors offering sustainable transportation options, such as the people on this webinar right now, funding assistance with grant opportunities and other state and federal incentive programs like the VW mitigation, and then professional consultation, including a green fleet audit and emissions quantifications. South Shore Clean Cities not only assists with grant and funding opportunities, but we help build relationships with our stakeholders. We are constantly looking at the big picture, not only for our fleets, but to make the biggest impact on our state in reducing our dependence on imported oil. If you are looking for ways to improve your fleet's performance or need assistance, please contact South Shore Clean Cities and we will be happy to assist you. I'd like to move on and see if anybody has questions for our speakers. Please write them in the questions box and we will address them accordingly. If you guys would like to come back on and then we can ask some questions. Okay. What is the biggest misconception of propane autogas for school buses? And any one of you can answer that one.
I think probably the one of the things that was, I don't know that it was big, but a concern that was out there is the protection of the bus, the tank, and if you get in an accident, is it going to explode and things like that. So I think that was probably one of the concerns that I know drivers brought up, and you see horror stories of perhaps older vehicles and stuff like that were not protected like a school bus. But Tyler could probably go more into the makeup of the Bluebird. But it was a concern that was easily taken care of here with what Tyler had to say and how the bus was manufactured. So.
Yeah, what Doug was saying, and Chris can probably touch on it too, but you see those old videos in movies of propane tanks blowing up and huge explosions and everything. And first thing I have to say is that Bluebird and Roush, they're not going to build something that you're going to put young students on that's going to endanger their lives, endanger their safety. And so they put a lot of different safety measures on there. There's a safety valve on the back side of the bus. That if it does detect a leak, it spits out little drops of propane, so the pressure doesn't get too big in the tank there. The fuel tank itself has a cage around it. It's crash protected, and so yeah, Chris can touch on more if he has any experience with that too.
Yeah, if we're talking safety, it's actually safer than gasoline or diesel if you think about it. Our flammability is super narrow. You need a specific temperature, a specific mix of oxygen and fuel and spark. There are 5 or 6 safety checks on the bus itself. There are 7 safety checks on the dispensing equipment. Your users will never come in contact with this fuel. If you do, something's happened, catastrophic. We've had buses, the brakes caught the tires on fire 10 feet away from that dispensing station that Doug showed. Approximately the same thing down in Kentucky a couple years ago. The bus burned to the ground with the hose still attached to it and nothing ignited. Like Tyler was saying, Roush, Bluebird, and more importantly, the United States government will not put children on an unsafe vehicle. The testing that the propane buses go through is astronomical. But again, we check all the boxes, all the features are included. It's, like I said, it's safer. And in terms of historical data, it's all out there. If you Google search propane explosions on buses or vehicles, you're going to get 9 or 10 articles, and most of them are just catchy headlines. The propane had nothing to do with the explosion. It's a belt or a tire or brakes or some kind of motor or something inside that causes the fire. And again, like Tyler said, the tank is as far away from potential impact as possible in the frame rails, and everything mitigates back to the strongest part. So it's going to go to the tank, surrounded by the frame rails, and yeah, you're going to. It all comes back to the tank, the strongest part of the vehicle. So you're really about as far away. Like I said, it's safer than gas and diesel at this point.
And I would like to add in there too, is that, and I'm sure all the transportation directors know, as well as their mechanics, you know, the first part that rests through on a fuel tank is right where the straps, mounting straps are at. So if you run your buses, you know, past 12, 13 years, then chances are you're replacing that fuel tank because it started to leak. And as well, whenever we're fueling these propane buses, our nozzle snaps onto it, so there's no risk of spill there. Whereas at our regular fueling island, you know, we get probably a couple spills a month or so, and you know, they're not huge, but still, I mean, that's something that's just not there with propane.
Yep.
Awesome, thank you guys. Next question, and I think Doug can answer this one. Was there apprehension on the part of your drivers to switch to propane? How did their perception of the buses differ from the reality of it?
What I mentioned before, as far as explosion and stuff, that mainly came from the drivers. But again, it was more of an educational piece there, you know, rather than anything else. And my 3 drivers I have on there now love them. And in fact, like I said, we're utilizing, which was a big learning curve for me and the other office personnel here that assigns buses out for trips, is to get those out on trips, and the drivers that have used them love them. I mean, there's that whole concern is no longer, I mean, it's not even brought up anymore. So
awesome. What would you tell a school transportation director or board member who might be interested in the switch, but isn't sure how to start? What would be your suggestion? And this could go for all 3 of you.
Well, from my point of view, again, I'm whether it's propane buses or anything to do with work or my personal life, it's a lot easier for me to sell something to someone if I can get behind it and stand behind it, that it actually works. So again, that cost analysis was huge. And again, you know, different vendors and stuff will, and not that anything to do with these guys, anything is wrong with their chart, but if you put the numbers into that chart yourself, you're going to know where they came from. You have already talked to these vendors and already, you know, they glean from their experiences and stuff. So the numbers on that analysis, you know, you can stand behind, and you're the one that's really selling it to them. So, you know, my thing is be as knowledgeable as you can, get your numbers and put your numbers in there, talk to your mechanics, and then go from there. Like I said, you know, for me, if I can get behind something and stand behind it, then it's a whole lot easier to sell, and that's the way with propane. Again, I don't see us ever going back to diesel unless some huge technology upgrade comes down the pike. So I mean, it's a no-brainer for us.
Do either of you want to add a comment or anything? Chris or
Yeah, I'll throw
Tyler?
in here. Yeah, I'll throw in. Like I said, it's a 1, 2, 3 approach, right? Find your technology. Tyler and Bluebird have the best, so just give those guys a call. And then find a fuel provider who will give you a piece of equipment that is not something off a submarine, and something that has modern conveniences, like Doug was saying, the nozzle that we're using there. very low emissions on the nozzle. Again, the user should never come in contact with the fuel. So it's, every journey starts with the first step. Give your bus dealer a call, give AmeriGas a call. There are dozens of other schools out there that would be glad to talk to you about how they did this. And the folks like Doug, what we consider our early adopters, or what, not really pioneers at this point, but still getting on board in the this first wave that's going on. Talk to them. Like Doug said, real world is a real story, and that's what you want to hear. You want to hear what really happens, not the stuff that Tyler and I are throwing at you. Put your own numbers in there, and get a demo going. Run these buses yourself. Get your hands on them. Listen to that motor. Understand what that means to your students and the driver, and the fact that they heat up in the morning, and the fact that, like Tyler said, in the cold weather, the check engine lights aren't coming on just because it's 10 degrees outside. Just a number of benefits that are available to you if you start asking the right questions. So reach out to any of us on this call or any of your local folks. Be glad to help you out, get you started.
Yeah, like Doug said, to piggyback, for superintendents and board members, the TCO, the total cost of ownership sheet, is going to be huge for them. They're gonna want to see where and how you're saving money, and we can present those TCOs to you, like Doug said, and we try to be as conservative as we can with our numbers, and from what we've heard from other schools. But like he said, it's all going to come down to his own numbers, how his drivers are actually driving the buses. And we tell drivers to drive them like their car, not, foot to the floor like a diesel. So it's really going to, take you maybe a couple months here to figure out what your numbers are. And like Chris said, we offer demos all the time. We can get extended demos out to schools. And so, we're willing to help in any way we can.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. How important is it to work with your local emergency responders to help educate them in a response if there were to be an accident?
Here in Franklin, they need to know, what you're running. We have a pretty good relationship with our local officers and fire department. In fact, they're going to use one of our buses out here in our parking lot here in about a week. So yeah, get your local people involved. It helped us out somewhat in that several years ago, our city went to propane for some of their vehicles. I know the Parks Department went to propane mowers, and I'm not sure what all entities of the city, but they, so it wasn't real new territory for them at the time, but it was on a smaller scale compared to us. So.
Yeah, before we begin every installation, we check with your authority having jurisdiction, usually a fire marshal or a state authority of some kind. It's super important that your local fire department knows that you have propane vehicles in their jurisdiction. We recently had a catastrophic event in the LAX, Los Angeles Airport, where a parking shuttle, where they parked the vehicles at night, one of the vehicles caught on fire. There happened to be 6 propane vehicles in that parking lot. And because the fire department knew what they were doing, none of the 6 propane vehicles, ignited. Nothing happened there. They were able to, mitigate the risk through, because they understood the propane. So yeah, it's an important part of the setup of the equipment. And then, like I said, even if you're not having equipment, we're going to let the local authority having jurisdiction know that there's propane vehicles in their backyards, just so that they're aware.
Awesome. Yeah, and that's something that we stress all the time, is educating people. It might not be difficult to learn, but if it's something that they've never done before, it's very important to make sure that everybody is aware. And that's the case for anything, Tyler, do you have anything to add to that?
No, these guys pretty much nailed it. I mean, just small things, you know, Bluebird's gone as far, and obviously there's a, you know, a diamond shaped propane sticker on the back. And some of our first responders are, you know, they're trained to kind of look at the back, look at the fuel sticker, kind of see that first. And then Bluebird's gone as far as, you know, on their diesel buses, their bird logo is black. Their gasoline logo is blue. Their propane logo is green. So that's an easy, you know, indicator for the first responders to say, okay, look at that bus right there. It's a green bird. That means it's propane. So.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. I have one last question, and I can address this with Doug. Did you do any public relations campaigns to explain the emission of cost savings to your taxpayers?
Whenever I went before the school board, that is, we televised that, and notes go out on our website and stuff. So we were moving towards seatbelts as well. So it did go out in some blurbs as well, but there wasn't a campaign, so to speak, to get out in front of the public. More so those that were, you know, tuned into the board meeting, and this went through a few board meetings as far as talking about it and getting numbers together and things like that. So.
Okay. All right. Well, I think that's all the questions we have. If anybody does have other questions, please feel free to contact any one of us. Our contact information is located right here. I do want to remind everybody to please be on the lookout for our upcoming Propane Autogas Answers virtual event. We are co-hosting that with the Propane Education and Research Council on Thursday, August 6th at 1 p.m. Central. This virtual event will go more in depth regarding propane autogas as a fuel. Attendees will hear from other members who have had success with making this transition. Visit the South Shore Clean Cities website event page for more information and other upcoming webinars and events that we are hosting. If there are no other questions, we can go ahead and wrap this up. Thank you all for joining us, and thank you again to our speakers for your participation. It's so great to have you guys on our, to work with you guys and to see these accomplishments happening. Please feel free again to contact us directly if you have any other questions. We will be happy to assist you. Thank you all again. And are there any other final comments or anything that you guys would like to add before we end? Oh, all right. Well, I appreciate it, guys, and have a great one.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Take care.